Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be going through the levels of ego development or the stages of consciousness. Clare Graves created this. It's called spiral dynamics. It's a model of the stages of consciousness. Other people have sort of added to this work and extrapolated it out. One of the most notable being Ken Wilber. Look at that man right there, this guy. Great book. So he kind of goes through and adds to it, but let's learn about this, and then maybe in the future, what he adds to it is he adds another dimension or access called the states of consciousness. So he has stages and states. So maybe we'll go through that in another video, but let's go through and just get the rudimentary idea of what we've got going on here. So in spiral dynamics, there are different stages, okay? There is the purple. There is going to be red. Let's just do all of the stages right now. So we got red. Then after red, we get blue. Then after blue, we get orange. Then after orange, we get green. Then we get yellow. Then we get turquoise. Cool. And yellow we're going to do with black. By the way, there's a stage below purple. It's called beige. It's sort of a base level consciousness or emerging consciousness. Sort of think infant, newborn, below purple, or our hominid selves just coming to and sort of realizing, hey, what's that in the mirror, right? Purple, we're going to skip that stage right now. It's kind of self-explanatory, not a lot to it. So we're going to start on purple. Purple is going to be sort of like seeing the world as magic. Sees magic, or enchantment, and that's pretty nifty for them. So think about people like that live in an isolated tribe, like in the Amazon or something like this, or like your child or kids from ages like 3 or 4 to like 8 or 9, right? They don't have really a rubric for understanding anything at a higher scientific or logical level. Right? They maybe think through the lens of like the gods, and God gives us the rain and the God of rain and sort of stuff like this. And think about like, if it rains, then, God was blessing us and, we celebrate. If it doesn't rain, then God was angry at us and we need to appease him in some way, some form of sacrifice or some dance or something like this, right? This is how we think here in this phase. Here we also value ritual, like we just said, right? Here the collective is important, right? So the individual, wrong. We think of as a collective. We go as a group, right? We hunt as a group. We do everything as a group. We hang out as a group. Everything is we eat as a group. Everything as a group. This mode or level of or stage of consciousness has been online for about 50,000 years. So we've been doing this for quite a while, right? After we can move through this, we get up to red. So red, we have it's egocentric. Woof. And cannot see outside of its own ego and its own needs and its own self, right? So it's a step up from here, right? But this one is individualistic. So this one is sort of delineated by aggressiveness. I think aggressiveness has 2 R's, but hey, what the hey? Aggressiveness and vigilance. Watch out. Watch your back. Because you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to come to get you, right? Got to be looking out for ourselves. Red is impulsive. Do it now. We might not get tomorrow. Let's do it tonight, right? So red is impulsive and ruthless, really, as well. Ruthless. Boom. This is my best attempt at a sword. Blood coming from the sword, okay. They are courageous in a dumb way, and they're determined. At all costs, whatever it takes, get it done. I don't care if you have to turn over the entire ocean. Do it. And this gives them power. This is where their power comes from. Pure will. The motivations ain't the best, right? So think about think about like the Roman Empire, right? We're conquering Alexander the Great. We're conquering, we don't care. We are getting all the land for ourselves, right? At whatever cost, right? Think about like the Spanish conquistadors. They went and pray on these guys, right? Every level or stage will pray or demonize the level below it, right? So these guys think about Spanish conquistadors. They're like, hey, you know what we're going to do? Oh, wow, look at this. We found all these purple people. Hey, we're going to just convince them that we're gods and have them give them all their stuff. And if they don't worry. We'll just eliminate them, right? And then take their stuff. So either way, it's fine, right? But if we can get them on our side and have them work for us, all the better, right? Slavery, right? We don't care. We really don't care. So these guys are going to work for us. And so that's where this kind of mentality comes in, right? And blue kind of starts to do away with that. Let's move on to blue. Let's start talking a little bit about blue. Blue is nation-centric or ethnocentric, right? So, okay, well, maybe we're not in the same tribe, but we're, same race, same country, right? That's fine. I can work with you. Blue is huge on rules because they realized, hey, this whole thing did not work at all, right? We need to have some rules. Ever see the Book of Eli? The Book of Eli, that entire story was trying to get everyone, the villain was trying to get everyone to be from here to get up to here, right? And that's why he needed the Book of Eli, right? If you haven't seen that story, I won't ruin it for you. But he needed the Book of Eli, right? To help control these crazy masses, right? So rules are huge in blue. Faith. Faith in God or a higher order. Think about every religion. Not every religion has a God, right? Think about something like Buddhism, right? We can have blue Buddhists, right? A lot of times we fantasize or idealize that which we don't fully know or understand, right? In the West, we kind of idealize these guys because they're one with nature, right? And we can also kind of idealize Buddhism because we don't really, they go through these stages as well though, right? Here, we are socially conservative. Sorry about my random caps and uncaps. My caps lock is broken. So yeah, that's blue, right? Follow the rules. And if you don't, down you go, right? Down you go. It's very stressful, right? You got to stay in blue. And that's the way. This is the way, right? Mandalorian is a great example of blue as well, right? And it's a story of moving from, again, the collective, and the Mandalorian starts to have his own personal mission. Cool. So let's talk about the next higher level. Let's talk about orange. Orange is rationality and science. Cool. Yay. Now we get stuff, right? Now we start creating and inventing stuff, right? And this leads to materialism. This leads to capitalism. Right? Boom. Yeah, cool. All right. And you might be thinking, cool, great. Finally, we've reached the highest way of viewing things, rationality and science. Incorrect, right? We don't actually view things through here, right? It's just a way of it's just a lens which we look through, right? That which is looking is not rational. Or we could say that which is looking is trans-rational. So, well, it's a later lesson, but we're self-reliant. We don't need anyone else, right? And that brings us back to individualistic or individualism or egocentricity, right? So we're self-reliant and we see the false of the blue, right? The lower stage, and we say, God, don't need him, doesn't exist or whatever, right? And then our religion becomes self-help, right? Sort of this Tony Robbins style, I suppose, reading books about improving yourself and so forth the like, right? So this is orange. And orange, this is a lot of where mostly everyone is right now. America is here, right? Trying to move on to green, but we kind of are getting some backlash, right? So this is where a lot of people are, and you'll see, right? This is business. Let's get money. Let's get stuff. Let's have the Lamborghini. Let's get all we can, right? And then once we realize that that's not going to make us happy, we're like, shoot, where's the happiness? We can move up to green. And we can realize that our happiness is in love and acceptance of others, right? And loving everything, right? That is one of the lessons of green. So green values pluralism because of that. Everyone's invited to the party. This can get green in a bit of trouble. We'll talk about that later. We also value equality, right? So at green, we realize, everyone is a part of the world. We're all one. We're all part of the divine, We all should get an equal amount of love and care and respect. That's green, right? Green is also relativistic. And then green is also sensitive as well, right? Very heart-centered. Yay. Green love. Think hippies. I hesitate to say any specific person, but sort of the hippies and the hippie movement and stuff like this. These are green people. And I'm sure a lot of oranges are watching this, potentially. And you might be saying, wait a second, hold on. Those greens are actually below us. Those hippie dippy people who are like free love and all this stuff, that ain't it. We're above them. Actually not. Sorry to burst the little balloon here. Let's draw a balloon that is bursted. And it's kind of fizzling out here. Sorry to burst that for you. But the greens are actually at a higher level of consciousness, or higher stage of consciousness, if you will. Not to judge any of the lower ones, once again, that is going to prevent you from moving up the stages, right? And we can see here, we get civil rights, and we get like environmentalism sort of stuff. Right? It's a long word. We get environmentalism, right? And we can see right now the main issues right now in society that are happening are this clash between green and orange, right? They're battling. Greens are a little bit lazy and lackadaisical, right? We have a cause, but all we know how to do is complain about it and scream about it, right? And orange, they're equipped. They have resources and they have a goal. They're individualistic. So again, just like red, they've integrated all these others. They're really pulling on the determination and the power that they had in red, right? So, and the greens, they're just letting it all hang out, So this is why we're seeing a big, huge pullback to orange again, right? And a lot of the values that were in red are in orange as well, and we're seeing a lot of red too, unfortunately, but it's all right. We'll get through this. So green is world-centric, essentially. Let's move on to yellow. Yellow is an awesome stage because guess what happens at yellow? We're going to draw this black line here at yellow. And the reason that we're going to draw a big black line at yellow is because there is a huge leap in understanding and consciousness when we move from these stages here, right? These are sort of like the survival stages, I suppose you could call it. These are the non-integral stages, I suppose is kind of a good way to put it in the negative, right? And these stages here are construct aware, meaning that they know that they're not the highest stage, but they know that they're not the lowest stage, right? Whereas before, in these non-construct aware phases, every stage we were at, we thought it was the best and highest. which makes sense, right? Why would you hold a certain way of thinking if you didn't think that it was the best way, right? So these guys aren't construct aware, these guys are. These guys can also see a natural hierarchy that occurs in nature, right? And this is something that the green is railing against. This is going to be something that hinders green, is our inability to accept the hierarchy of the universe and the natural hierarchy that is, right? And accepting your place in that and doing the best, being the golden cog in the bronze machine. It's also a systemic thinking. We think in systems here, right? So we see the hierarchy, we see how things work, and our structures are built from that, right? We might get some super futuristic stuff here, kind of like green. Green isn't really doing a whole lot of work, right? Yellow is where these things are going to be accomplished, right? Green does work, but just not as much. So we start system thinking here, we start fixing things, we start optimizing things really, right? Things get fixed here, things get optimized here. In yellow, we hold multiple perspectives simultaneously at the same time. So again, being construct aware, we can speak to each of these stages in the way that we know is going to reach them the best, right? Not to say, and these guys are doing this completely authentically. Authenticity. Boom. These guys aren't trying to blend in. They're not trying to be something they aren't. They're just using the language of these different stages, right? Just because I go to Spain and I speak Spanish, it doesn't mean that I become a different person. I'm just using their language, right? They know how to do this without becoming this, stepping fully into these stages, right? So because of that, these guys are flexible. They're creative with solutions mostly, right? They can be creative with other things as well, right? And what they do is effective. It actually works, right? Sustainability too. We learn in green, we take it to yellow, right? Let's put sustainability under environmental. Right? But sustainability, like I said, is optimized in yellow, right? It's brought up, the idea is brought about in green, but it's optimized in yellow. This is the leading edge of where we're at. Leading edge of consciousness right now, right? There aren't too many people that are at yellow or above, right? So when we get to turquoise, we have even less people. Let's highlight the yellow so that we can get our yellow vibes going. All right, that's yellow. The final stage in spiral dynamics is turquoise. Now, it is not the final stage. We could theorize that these go on for infinity, just like reality and numbers go on for infinity, right? But this is, it seems to me that this is the highest stage or level of ego development that, that humans can hold currently. This one is integral. So all previous phases completely and totally integrated within turquoise, right? And we can see all the different phases just like we could in yellow. That's a part of the yellow integration. It is not a unique part of turquoise per se, I believe. Sees the world as alive. Sees world alive and evolving. So when I look at you, I don't see you. I see where you came from, and I see who you will be. And that all converges in the now. An ability to intensely be in the now comes with turquoise, right? And this is paradoxical. This is another thing that turquoise does really well. Turquoise can hold paradox, and that is essential to being able to hold all knowledge. Not hold it, but have access to, right? So we have access to that. Think about like Jesus, right? And the Buddha. But, we have our intensely people that we see, like these guys are up on there. They're incredibly, incredibly enlightened people, right? There probably aren't too many of these people walking around today. Furthermore, while yellow was back to I, or individual or egocentricity, turquoise says, hey, I'm going to be individualistic and collective at the same time, because I can do that now. Because these guys understand beyond self and live beyond the self. Oh, now we're starting to get into murky waters, aren't we? Right? So then there's a level above this, which is called post-integral, which basically is just enlightenment. Just basically just needing to do nothing. Need nothing. Think about your yogis or your gurus that just sit in a room, right? They exude joy, love, and peace. Just their presence has the ability to impact people, right? And so does turquoise, right? But this is sort of just like stillness, right? Nothing needs to be done. We've achieved it already, right? Now, this is a little bit more of Ken Wilber's. In Claire Graves' model, turquoise was the highest, right? So that's kind of what we're sticking with today. But these are the different levels and what they kind of are. Let's talk a little bit about the death traps of each stage. What's going to keep us in each stage, and how can we move forward to the next one? Purple's fear, right? We're afraid. We're afraid of that which is not us, right? We stay in the tribe, right? And we can move beyond purple by just having a little bit of faith, a little bit of love, or something like this, stepping out. In fact, sometimes you just get individuals going out on their own from the tribe. When you have someone step into courage, determination, and their own power, then we get people breaking away from the group, right? We don't immediately go into a collective that's bigger, right? We get individuals, right? And then we get that, right? So this one here is where we come from, right? And the death trap here is going to be paranoia, right? Think about leaving the group, constantly paranoid. You are no longer in the safety of this, right? You're on your own. Everyone is out to get you. And like I said, don't turn your back. They're vigilant, right? Don't you dare turn your back or someone else is going to come to get you, right? Notice how they're projecting on everyone else their level, right? And this is generally what happens. So we get paranoia here, right? The next level's death trap, the blue, is anxiety, right? This is just kind of how I see it, by the way. This isn't a hard and fast thing. The blues is anxiety, right? Notice how these are just different levels of fear, right? We have anxiety, right? We start developing anxiety here and we step into here, right? So this anxiety, what it does is this being blue is a way to deal with the anxiety, but it never fully goes away because we're always afraid to not be in the higher order, right? Or we're afraid to be stepping out of this because if we do, boop, straight down, we go burn forever, right? And so even by getting rid of the fear and the paranoia and the anxiety that we had in red, we have a constant application running in the background of anxiety here, even though we don't realize it, right? And so we can let this go and move on to red. And now when we move on to red becomes angry and hateful, right? Because, I'm sorry, I meant orange. Orange becomes angry and hateful, right? Because orange sees that he tried being collective, right? And then he tried being individualistic, and those didn't work out. And now he sees these people and he's like, they don't know what they're talking about. Remember, orange does not realize any stages above itself, right? So he's the highest now, and everyone else, they're below him, right? So we're demonizing these people. We're taking advantage of these people, right? Because we know their weaknesses. We can sell them a pill for anxiety, right? We're taking advantage, these orange people are, right, of the blues. Right? We can also sell pills that cure other things to the lower stages, right? Just think about that. So orange detests that which is not itself, right? It's better than everyone because it's, reading Tony Robbins and all this stuff. And this is, and on orange, we get a huge demonization of the green too. There is a huge fight going on right now between, like I said, between green and orange. So in orange, once we realize that our hatred and our anger does not feel good on the inside of us, we realize the limits of materialism and capitalism and that we can't always fully rely on just ourselves. We can move on and get rid of that anger and hatred in love. And that's when we want to step in. That's when we step into green and admit maybe there is a better way to be doing things, right? And we step into green, right? Now, when we get to green, we've already covered it, so let's continue talking about sort of the death trap, right? The death trap of green is spiritual pride, right? So spiritual pride, because what we're thinking about in green is like, oh, in orange, I was wrong, but now I'm in green, right? Now I totally get it, right? Because again, remember, these stages don't recognize that there are stages higher than them, right? Or lower, or well, they realize that they're lower stages, but they don't realize there are stages higher than them, right? They don't realize there are stages higher than them. So green's like, oh, now I really got it. I used to think that I was the highest, but now I really am the highest, kind of thinking that they're in turquoise, right? Now I really understand. And think about this. What happens with green is spiritual pride is we demonize the stages that are closer to us, like the blue and the orange. And we tend to be able to have a little bit more compassion and even sometimes romanticize some of these other stages like purple. Oh, they're so connected, right? They just live at one in harmony with each other. And, they're one with the earth. Yeah, but they're sacrificing like animals and kids and stuff like that, right? So let's go back up here, right? And red, we can have compassion on them because they're so caught up in their own egocentricity, right? We realize, that we start to get a hint here at green that we're not like our egos in a sense, right? But we don't fully realize and make it real, I will say, right? So we get a sense of pride being better than everybody else, right? And this is again why we're in such a big spat with like with the orange people, right? And so the thing that's going to make green move up is going to be getting rid of that pride, stopping judging everybody, right? Because green is so inclusive and like civil rights, environmental, like we're good people, but yet they still harbor negative emotions in their hearts towards these other stages, right? So in order for us to really move through green, we stop judging. We stop judging, we get rid of our pride, we realize that this thing goes on for infinity up and down, right? Because, yeah, that's just the nature of reality, right? And once we realize that, boom, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but we can start working on towards becoming construct aware, right? But that's one of the reasons that this little black line is so difficult to cross, right? Is because we don't want to give up our betterness than other people, right? We tend to see people like that, right? When we're in green. Yellow, there isn't really a whole lot holding yellow back. Probably desire is like the lowest emotion this guy will feel, but not even that really. The real thing that yellow needs to do in order to transcend to the higher levels is to let go of its systems. It needs to let go of its models. It needs to let go of everything that it is put on top of the world so that the world can come through in its fullness and actuality, burst through the models, right? So that we can access all the knowledge and go beyond the self, essentially, right? And so we need to let go of that. The Hawkins book, Dr. David Hawkins, Letting Go, is yellow on the cover, isn't it? It's yellow and like white and black, isn't it? So think about that. Yellows need to let go of their systemic thinking. And then once we reach turquoise, we're pretty good. There won't be a whole lot of negativity here, right? There won't be a whole lot of issues reaching here once we get to turquoise, right? And this is, by the way, purple, or this like other color that I drew over here, that is in spiral dynamics, right? But it's called coral, and I won't speak too much on that because I'm not really sure. It's basically just, I believe, God realization and just needing nothing, right? Like I said, and just exuding joy and love and peace in everything that is positive, right? Sort of becomes a cell phone tower for like God consciousness, if you will. Just stepping into the presence of that person will change your life, right? So again, we could sort of maybe potentially think about people like Jesus and Buddha. Let's talk about two other things as an overview here, right? You want to be careful. You're going to have the urge to you're going to have the urge to like sort of put yourself on one of these levels, see where you're at. Great, do that, right? See where you're at. The thing is, it's going to take a lot of honesty. What happens is these people, wherever you are at, you're going to tend to judge yourself 2 levels higher. So you're at red, this individualistic level, let's say. You're not blue because that's collective. That has nothing to do with you. Heck with all the rules, right? So you're a rational person, right? It makes sense. So I'm out for myself, right? You're self-reliant and so forth, right? And maybe you even like capitalism at red, right? So be watchful of that. Blues tend to be thinking they're greens, right? Because they want to be seen as, like egalitarian and, accepting and stuff like that. But really they're not as much, right? They're still stuck in this very narrow way of this is it. And if you are not it, then I cannot accept you. I'll pretend to accept you and love you, but I will not in my heart, right? So the same thing with orange, it wants to be yellow, right? It thinks that rationality in science, well, look at this guy. He's doing all these system things. That's got to be me, right? I can hold multiple perspectives. Look, I can see all these people below me. Nope, that's not it, orange. You are orange, okay? You're not yellow, right? And then green thinks that they're teal, right? Oh, because they've reached the highest level, right? And that, again, like I said, is one of the reasons why it is so difficult to cross this tiny black line. It's not difficult. It just takes a little bit more work than all these other stages did. And think about the work that it took you to get from blue to orange, right? A lot of pain, a lot of letting go, a lot of relearning happens in this stage, right? So even more so for here. Think about that, right? The pain of admitting that you were prideful, like the worst sin in the Bible, right? Which again, right? Let's talk about this here. The worst sin in the Bible, we're talking about this stuff. We have to integrate and include, right? So green still has blue within it, right? All of these colors are being included with it where you're at. You're not rejecting them. You're just realizing the limitations of certain points, right? Ken Wilber calls this transcending and then including, right? So this has to do with how we're going to be moving on to the next levels, right? How we move on to the next level is we learn every lesson in here. We learn that rationality and science don't always get us there. In fact, they get us into trouble sometimes. We learn that materialism is far from the truth, right? We realize that capitalism can be harmful, right? And we realize that we cannot only rely on ourselves, right? And that self-help, right, was keeping us in a box, right? It was training us to only get so far, right? And once we realize all this, then we can step in, right? But we still get the self-help values, right? Those are necessary, right? We still have self-reliance, right? We still have stuff, right? We still do money, right? And we still do science, right? So it's transcending and including. So don't forget that. That's how we're going to move on. The why of it is what happens in order for us to really fully move on is we need to stop judging the lower stages. Stop judging the other stages, because once we stop judging, then we can open ourselves up to shift, right? Maybe these guys aren't so bad. Maybe I had it wrong. Humbling ourselves. That's why this stage is hard to move on from, once again. But we need to stop judging all the lower stages. So hopefully this helped you. I hope that you got something out of this. This is one of my favorites. I love talking about this and doing this. So I don't usually do this, but if you liked this video, maybe hit that subby button. And if you don't want to do that, then at least like it since you liked it, right? So, but anyways, looking forward to seeing y'all in the next one. Have a great life. See you soon.